The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, this is Sophie from English Australia. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start by just briefly introducing everybody to the English Australia Action Research in ELICOS program, and then I'll hand over to today's presenters, Meredith McCauley and Tanya Bencic, and they're going to be talking about their action research program that project that they undertook as part of our action research program this year, which was about student investigations of their future disciplines within a direct entry EAP course. So English Australia has been running its action research in ELICOS program now for 9 years, and next year will be our 10th year of the program. It's run in partnership with Cambridge Assessment English, and basically what happens is that teachers can apply to take part in the program, and 6 projects are accepted onto the program each year. And teachers are guided through the process of conducting an action research project in their own classroom by Professor Anne Burns, who works at the Faculty of Education in the School of TESOL at the University of New South Wales. So Anne has been working on the program with English Australia for all 9 years of the program, and she's been very involved in it since its inception. So the program involves 3 workshops for teachers. So teachers are chosen from colleges all around Australia, and they come together for 2 workshops in Sydney and 1 final workshop in the city where the English Australia Conference will be held, which next year will be Melbourne. And at the workshops, Anne guides them through the process of developing and undertaking their project. And then in between the workshops, teachers can touch base with Anne on Skype calls or via email, and they also can touch base with each other using a Facebook group. So this year, the topic for the Action Research in ELICOS program was connecting students to the outside world. And the project that you're going to hear about today from Tanya and from Meredith related to that theme, and hence the title, Making Connections. Next year's theme is teaching, learning and assessing pronunciation. So if you're considering applying for the program next year, the expression of interest would need to be based around that theme. So I'm just going to publish our webpage. Everybody should have just been sent a link. If you click on that, that links directly to the English Australia website page that has all of the information about the program and about next year's theme and key dates. So if you are considering applying for next year's program, the expressions of interest are due on the 1st of February 2019, and on that webpage there's a lot of information about the kinds of things that you need to include in that expression of interest, and there are some examples of expressions from previous year's programs which were successful expressions of interest as well. So I'd like to hand over now to today's presenters, Meredith and Tanya, and they're going to tell you about their project. At the end of their presentation, they're also going to take questions about the project, but also about participating in the program. So if you have any questions for me or for today's presenters about participating in the Action Research in ELICOS program, there'll be an opportunity to ask them at the end. So I'd like to introduce today's speakers now. Meredith and Tanya both teach English for academic purposes on a direct entry program at the Institute of Languages at UNSW Global at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. And they both have a professional interest in English language students' transition to university and how they transfer their English language skills and learning, and also their motivation to do this and throughout this process. This year, they undertook this project about students who were investigating their future subject disciplines within their own direct entry course that they were teaching. And the project actually won the English Australia Award for Action Research this year, which is part of the reason why we've invited Meredith and Tanya to come and present today, so that they can really share the success of their project. So Meredith and Tanya, I'd like to hand over to you now.
Cool. Thank you, Sophie, and thank you everyone for coming and listening to the webinar. I hope we can give you information about our project, but also share our experiences and answer some questions so that you can participate in this amazing program. So I'll go ahead and just start talking about our project. So it's called Making Connections, Student Investigations of Their Future Disciplines within a Direct Entry EAP course. And, whoops, Sophie, I'm having trouble with, just a second. Can you see that? Oh, just 1 second.
Just move it over a tiny bit to the right. Yep, just to the right, one more. Yep. To the right. Yep, oh, okay, there you go. Great.
Okay, got it, sorry. Okay, so as Sophie was saying, our context. So we work at UNSW Institute of Languages Direct Entry Program on a course called University English Entry Course, or UEC. So at the peak times of the year, we have very large cohorts. So for example, 85 classes. Our students, as I said, are on a direct entry pathway, so they may do 20, 15, or 10 weeks of EAP courses. Upon their successful completion, they're able to enter directly into UNSW without having to take further English proficiency exams. Now, our course is what we can call an EGAP course, English for General Academic Purposes. So rather than our course being discipline specific or focusing on a specific major like business or something like that, it's designed to help students transfer different academic skills to their specific programs. Oops. Sorry, Sophie, we're having trouble with the
That's all right,
mouse.
I'll change it for you. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so in our UEC course, seeing that we do have an EGAP course, our students are all different majors. So the participants of our action research came from different majors, and there were 36 of them. So for example, some of our students were engineers. They came from the business school, design, journalism, public relations. And all the students were mixed together into the individual classes. And our action research group was made up of two classes, Tanya's class and my class, that we taught at the same time. And our students had an English level of CFR B2, which is about a 5.5 IELTS. And these students were on a 15-week pathway. So they did 15 weeks of the EAP course, a direct entry course, before entering UNSW. Okay, so why did we decide to choose this for our project? Well, research shows that some question whether EGAP courses or English for General Academic Purposes courses do prepare students for their specific major, like business or engineering or design. Research on graduates of EGAP courses show that students often perceive that they're unable to transfer the generic skills to their discipline-specific courses. Some students have also reported that they didn't have the language to enable them to participate in specific discussions about their disciplines. And we found the same in our course. So Tanya and I have both been teaching this course for quite a few years, and we've noticed that often our students don't have basic content knowledge for their disciplines. So for example, some of our students change majors. Most of our, I didn't mention, most of our students are pursuing postgraduate studies. So, for example, they had a different major before, and then they've now decided to study accounting or business or engineering. So they don't actually have a lot of language, and this can often cause problems in our course, because in our UEC 10 course, they do have to give a presentation on their specific major, and it's very difficult for them to think of issues or topics to do this. Some students also don't see a connection between the UEC course and their future course, and because of this, they may have low motivation. So based on these issues, we decided to pursue 2 research questions. And the first one is, how can UEC students make greater connections with their future university disciplines within this EGAP course, where they are mixed together in different majors, not focusing on their specific disciplines? And what effects will these connections have on the students? So we came up then with a research design in order to investigate these questions. So what we decided to do was to have students become researchers of their future disciplines, because we are not experts on all their different majors, so we wanted them to take the initiative and do their own research, taking an ethnographic approach. So in order to do this, we wanted them to look at different aspects. So we had them using authentic course information. We had them speaking to students of their specific majors at UNSW, and we had them working with staff. So we took the following approach in their investigations. So first we had them formulate a question so they could decide what do they actually want to know. Then they carried out their investigation, they recorded and discussed and reflected their findings, and then they synthesized and evaluated them. They also, as I said, they reflected upon them, and they kept reflective learning journals throughout the action research. Okay, oh, sorry. Okay, so let's talk about cycle 1. So cycle 1 took 5 weeks, and this course took, this action research took place in the 5-week UEC course that we call UEC 15. And we were fortunate in that our school allowed us to run a pilot course. So we designed lessons and materials for the discussion and the presentation class, and we based these 2 classes around investigations. So as you can see on the screen, students investigated 5 different aspects. So as you can see, investigation 1, they looked at what is my course, what will I study? So they looked at the UNSW faculty website to find out what were their core courses and what were their elective courses. Then in investigation 2, they looked at the assessment and task that they'll need to do. And they looked at a course outline for one of the specific courses that they found that they were going to probably study at university. Investigation 3, they were actually having an opportunity to interview a former UEC student and a current UNSW student, and asking them what they found challenging and how they could then, apply the skills from UEC to university. Investigation 4 was issues in their field. So they were looking at different media articles on specific issues in their field. They were also trying to look at the UNSW website and see how these different issues are being researched at uni. And finally, investigation 5, student spaces photo capture. We asked students to actually go onto campus and take some photos of places that they might be studying in or working in the future. Okay, so these investigations took place in the discussion class. They actually worked in faculty groups, as you can see from the slide. So for example, different engineers worked together, business students worked together. We had a commerce group and accounting group. We did have some cases where we had to group students from different majors together. So for example, journalism and law and public relations together, because that's where we saw the clearest link. And they did the investigations, and then in the discussion class, they discussed the findings. And we did, as I said before, we had worksheets and tasks which centered on these different investigations. Now, in the presentation class, as in the other class that the other students were doing who weren't in the pilot class, they were learning presentation skills, and they were actually learning group presentation skills and learning how they can present the findings of their investigations. Okay, so on this slide here, you can see we've got on the left, we've got some students from the engineering faculty who are in front of the slides of their group presentation. So this presentation was based on the findings from their investigations. And on the right, you can see we have a poster presentation. So this was a new part of the syllabus that we added that had not done before. And we decided to do the poster presentation because we found that posters are a part of several different majors at UNSW. So for example, engineering and business. So what we had students do was we had them learning about the purpose of an academic poster, how poster, and also a good design of a poster. And they synthesized the findings and put them into that poster, and we got them printed. So here we had a kind of a gallery style poster presentation where our two pilot classes were presenting their faculties or information about their faculties to students from the rest of the school. So this was really interesting. And that's actually our Director of Studies talking to one of the students about her poster. So this was really successful, and students really enjoyed, as I said, working in groups, but also meeting students from their majors during this part. Okay, so let's look at cycle 2. Now, cycle 2 took part during the high stakes part of the course, and it went for 10 weeks. Now, because this was the high stakes of the course, we weren't able to change the syllabus at all, so our students needed to be doing the same things that other students were doing. But as I said before, in the 10-week course, students do have a presentation, an individual presentation, focusing on their future major. So we decided then that we wanted to find out how students were transferring the skills they learned from their investigations to this presentation. So we had them write fortnightly in their learning journals about what they were learning and how this was transferring. And we also asked students to voluntarily do 2 investigations. And you can see on the slide a choice of 6 investigations. Now, the ones that students undertook the most were the ones that were actually offered by the school. So UEC Graduate Talks is something that we've been doing at our school for a while. We have former UEC students coming and talking to current students about their experiences. And so this was one option that students had. After they did the investigation, they needed to go and then write in their learning journal about what they had learned and how they're going to apply that. Faculty orientations, this is another thing that our school has organized, and students can meet staff. Making connections videos, or just some videos we have of faculty at UNSW, again, talking about the requirements of the course. Lecture attendance was something that we wanted to experiment with, but unfortunately only a few students were able to do it, as we kind of left it up to them to organize. And the last one, focus on career pathways and job qualifications. What we had were recommended to students for this one is we recommended they went, for example, to seek.com and looked up a future career pathway. and finding out what requirements students actually needed for that job, and then thinking about, what they could do at UNSW to help them possibly get that job. And then we had their own investigation. Okay, so as you can see, we had actually 2 cycles. They were both focused on investigations, but they were, slightly different. Okay, let's look at data collection. So we have 5 different types of data collection. So the first one are the surveys. So we use SurveyMonkey to ask students questions before and after the first cycle and after the second cycle. And these surveys were mostly centered, the survey questions were mostly centered around what students were actually learning. So we could see a before and after, snapshot of the students. And so the questions were things like, I feel confident giving presentations about my major, or I know the types of courses I'll have to do in the future at UNSW. The reflective learning journals, as I said before, students were responding to a prompt each week in UEC 15, and they were doing it fortnightly in UEC 10, and they were just answering our questions. And we tried to have different questions each week about the individual investigation, what they learned, and what they plan to transfer, and then any questions they had as well. Reflective journals, we wrote in them as well to capture, how we were experiencing things and what we were learning. The focus groups, we had a focus group after cycle 1 and after cycle 2. And we just aim to explore more information about what students had said in the surveys. We also questioned students about whether they thought we should continue with the types of activities we were doing in UEC 15 with the investigations, and getting their feedback about how we might, change that in the future if we did decide to put that into the curriculum. And also, what more do students want to know about their majors? And finally, we did look at the posters and presentations and analyze different content to try to gauge, how much had students learned about their faculties, what content and what issues had they acquired, and vocabulary as well. Okay, so I'm going to move now on to Tanya, who's going to discuss the findings.
Thanks for that, Meredith. Yeah, so I'm just going to discuss basically the effects. So we had the second question there of what effects did these connections have on the findings. And we found from the cycle 1 that there were 5 main areas that we did find findings, and that was that it increased students' knowledge, their motivation. We also found there was an increase in overall confidence. Students were able to make peer connections, connections with students from the UNSW main campus, university campus. And we also found that there was an overall improvement in their study skills. So I'm just going to touch on those a little bit more. So just in regards to increased knowledge, basically we found that they were able to gain a better understanding of their future course structure. So that really includes the contents of various topics. They had an opportunity to find out what a typical timetable would look like, certain locations for their studies, etc. They also found out more about their required tasks and assignments. So that included things, for example, would most of their assessment be based on examinations, presentations, lab reports, and of course the weightings of those different types of assessments and assignments. They also found that they were able to increase knowledge in relation to the type of issues that were related to their fields of study. And of course, that also enabled them to develop their own vocabulary within that topic area. And finally, they were able to develop and understand what kind of career pathways their study would be leading to. So let's have a look at the second one now on confidence and motivation. So it was interesting that we were able to determine much of this information through the journals of the students, and these journals revealed that there was a lot of engagement within the investigations, and as a result of that engagement, they really, like it mentions here from this particular quote, they were able to, they felt they were pushed harder to do their best. And it's interesting, like even, you've got a picture here there of some students during that poster presentation day, and you can see that they really took pride in the outcomes of that poster presentation day, and in just explaining their posters to the other students, to teachers, and it was just like a real buzz of an atmosphere. So it was a really enjoyable experience for the students, and just they were able to develop that confidence to engage in that poster presentation work in the future. We also found that the students were able to increase their knowledge in their future courses. So through our data collection, we found that these main areas included academic language and the use of that language. It also included leading discussions and participating, giving presentations. What is important to note from the particular data that you're looking at here is that there was increase in knowledge in all these areas, but these were the three main areas that we noted was an increase of knowledge. In regards to the type of connections that these students were able to develop with their peers, you've got just a couple of photos here of, again, the one there on the left, again on presentation day, of the poster presentation day, where one of the students is actually talking to one of the teachers. And they just mentioned, I was very happy to learn my professional courses with other students. I like my major, and I find that my future classmates are very friendly. So they had an opportunity to also meet with students that would be in their future faculties. And of course, just on the right there, you can see a group of students when they engaged in that third investigation of interviewing a student on campus. So that was a great opportunity for them to really meet and to ask questions that they were particularly concerned about, as what would university life be like, what would it be like studying this particular field, etc., and how could they better prepare for that transition from UEC to university study. So from this slide here, we've actually got just a bit of a snapshot of the area of skills development and what we actually saw were the significant areas in where they developed their skills. So again, they were in four main areas: discussion skills, presentation skills, critical thinking, and research skills. And it's really interesting that, in fact, all of the participants, that's 100% of them, they strongly agreed that they found that the project in cycle 1 was useful. This is an interesting quote coming from one of the students, and they just mentioned, I learned how to cooperate with others, how to organise the presentation in planning and designing the presentation, and it helped me to improve my speaking skills, make me more brave, than before. So again, it was that development of skills they required to work with others within a group, but also in order to be able to speak with confidence in front of a live audience. It's interesting to note that the results that we got from cycle 2 were similar to what we saw in cycle 1. So basically there was an increase in knowledge and motivation. But what was also quite outstanding was that there was in fact a transfer of skills that took place from what they actually did in that first cycle to the second cycle. But there was also a transfer of knowledge of what they were able to obtain from the course in UEC 15 to what they did then in UEC 10. So these particular targeted areas were confidence to do research. They felt that there was increased motivation to, in fact, present and to be able to present in front of an audience. But also we found that it really had an impact, a positive impact on the topic choices that they made for their presentations, because they had knowledge already within those specific faculty areas. So from this picture here, we can see one of the students who was in fact giving one of those presentations there. And she mentioned that she really appreciated the opportunity she had to use those new skills that she was able to develop. And those resources that she used during that research stage was also very helpful for her during the UEC 10 presentation. And so, as she mentioned, the semester presentation had a wonderful ending. And that's what we want from our students.
Okay.
So, and now
okay, so
Mary's going to do the conclusion.
Okay, so in conclusion, we found that in response to our questions, there are various ways that we can help our students to make connections with their future faculties. And the investigations that we designed, we found they did offer a lot for our students, a range of opportunities for them to find out from different perspectives. We also found that students did increase their autonomy, motivation, confidence. They really enjoyed making connections with peers, forming a network, and developed a number of skills. One thing that we were quite pleased with was that students reported that they really benefited from reflection. So after cycle 2, we asked students whether they appreciated the opportunity to write in reflective learning journals, even though it wasn't mandatory. And 100% actually said yes, they found it useful. We've also found that the relevance of activities does lead to student motivation. And this is based on research, and that, yeah, this was also a really great finding, and really shows to us that it's really important to make activities relevant and help them to perceive the relevance of activities that they're doing in the EGAP course.
And just in regards to our overall reflections, we found that engaging in the Action Research Project was really quite a valuable experience, particularly for our professional development. It really helped us to develop our awareness of what our students' needs are, of what their goals are, of what their capabilities are. Sometimes we really underestimate what in fact our students are able to do. And so we found that, particularly I found within the group of students that we were working with, their ability to engage in research and then use that material for other studies, you really just see the potential of these students. And of course, what was an amazing benefit too was that it was so successful that we were able to implement all the activities from Cycle 1 into the UEC 15 curriculum. And we've had an opportunity to really teach this again, and there's been a number of teachers who have also had that opportunity, probably about, would you say 40 or so, 40 teachers. So it's just amazing to be a part of this whole project and to see it really, the success of it and to be a part of that.
Okay. I think that's all. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. And just while I'm waiting to receive people's questions, I'll start the ball rolling with a question of my own. How do you feel that the program and also undertaking this project has helped you to develop professionally as a teacher? Happy for either of you or both of you to answer that question.
Oh, no, I think one thing that I really appreciate about it is that I was able to implement some ideas that I had previously had. I've been thinking about wanting students to research their majors for a long time, and I think having the opportunity to pursue an idea that you've had, I think is really rewarding and also to be able to foster students' autonomy, and as Tanya said before, to see what they can do, to see their potential and really push them. And we were really rewarded with the opportunity to experiment. I think was great, because we have been teaching the same course. We teach the same course quite regularly, so it's great to be able to have an opportunity to do something different, I thought.
Yeah, and I think sometimes what we've often feel we have to do is we almost have to hold the students' hands and just guide them and direct them, and we think, oh, they won't be able to, perhaps they won't be able to do this unless I show them step by step. But, we actually found, particularly through the posters that these students designed, they were awesome. And I was absolutely flabbergasted, in fact, by what we actually saw as to how much research they were able to carry out, but also then put that into a poster and be able to talk about it. So there had actually been a learning process that took place, and that's perhaps something that we underestimate about our students' abilities to do that there's a lot more going on within that learning process that that we actually perhaps may initially anticipate. So we need to allow ourselves to just let go a little bit and allow students to take the steering wheel, as it were, and to just lead themselves a little bit in their own learning process, give them that autonomy.
Okay, wonderful. There's a question from one of the participants. How much time did your project take on a weekly basis?
A lot.
Yeah.
We did a lot of work. Because we wrote the lessons for UEC 15. I mean, it was enjoyable, but we did write the lessons.
And and there's also, of course, in order to try and identify what those key findings are, to get answers to those questions, you have to analyse the data. So you have to think about how we're actually going to collect the data. What's an effective question we can be asking, so we're actually getting answers to those questions that we've asked, and to be able to measure or quantify somehow that response. So and that all takes time to be able to then transcribe what happens in one of those focus group sessions, and then go through that with a fine-tooth comb and see, well, what is that really telling me about what an effect this independent learning investigation had on the student.
But seeing that, I think though that I think there's different scales though. I mean, we wrote the lessons because there's something that we wanted to try it, but you could work with your curriculum and just make even, minor changes. I don't think, we did do a lot of work, but I think that's because we enjoyed what was coming out of it. But, maybe we did more than we needed to do.
And of course,
Yeah.
something that we haven't mentioned during the webinar is the write-up of your project for
Yes.
the award. So at the end of the program, researchers write up their project and that is submitted for the English Australia Award for Action Research. But then that particular piece of writing is then transformed into a report that's published in the Cambridge Research Notes the following year. And there's support throughout that process in writing up those different versions of the project from Anne Burns. But that would contribute to some of the workload as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I just thought that was...
Or was that...
But I think that, like you said, it's very scaffolded. So, and I think it's achievable by really anyone that's in the program. You get so much support and so much help. And first, you write something shorter. You're writing, I think, 1,000 words, and then you're writing 2,000 words. I don't remember the limit, but you're building on it.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that you're getting a lot of support and you're getting a lot of scaffolding. So it's not unachievable. It is very achievable, and you're sharing all the information in the meetings. You're really getting a lot of help.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that the workshops were invaluable, really, because you were able to share your ideas with other teachers, and just to get their ideas, their viewpoints, and perhaps an approach that you're thinking of taking, but maybe they've got something else that they could help you with. And actually, even Anne was fantastic. We always felt that we could just kind of feed back certain questions and things, and she was just very, very helpful, and it made the whole process a lot easier.
Okay, great. Another question. Did you have the support of your managers?
Yeah, I think we definitely did. And I think that's actually a key to your project being a success, is that you do have to have that support, because you're obviously doing something that's different. You're experimenting. You're piloting a program, or you're piloting something, and it's not been done before. So it's really nice that managers actually have the confidence that you can do that, and it helps to facilitate the whole process. So you really do need to communicate with your managers to let them know what you are doing, and also during the whole process as well, so they're informed. And that just makes it a lot easier. Yeah,
and I think I'd very much recommend having the support of your managers, because there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, the institution contributes towards the funding for the third workshop. So where the workshop that's held at the English Australia Conference, we ask institutions to actually fund the flights and the accommodation of people to participate in that, and English Australia funds the conference registration along with Cambridge Assessment English. So that's one reason. But the other reason is that there may be times where you need release from class to be able to, well, there will be times when you come to the workshops, and then to be able to complete the assignments and the essays, you may need to have some release from class as well. So we find if you have the manager's support, it is a lot easier, in terms of undertaking the program. There's another question. Have you previously completed any postgraduate research before this project? Okay. So I'll get you both to answer that because I know you'll have different answers.
Yeah, so yeah, I did. So I was interested in this because I did a paper, I published a paper on transfer, which led to a lot of the ideas here that I was able to contribute. So in my master's, and I think that really helped me in terms of doing the research. So I'd already learned quite a lot of research methods, research analysis, but yeah, so that was one reason I wanted to pursue this project, and I'm so excited about the topic of making connections because there were a lot of ideas I wanted to pursue. But I also did learn a lot, during the process. I had not done action research before, so but I love research. Yeah.
And for my, I actually participated in research project for my master's degree as well, and particularly I had an interest in motivation, enhancing motivation for students who were in fact learning English as a second language. So I've always had a real passion for that, and to really find out what in fact allows students to be more engaged, a willingness to be more engaged in what they're learning, and of course what kind of an effect does that have on the learner themselves, looking at intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, etc. So this was a great opportunity to be able to really develop that interest that I had in motivation of students.
Great, thank you. And I guess I'd just like to add that Meredith and Tanya have obviously had that experience with research, but a lot of the people who undertake the program haven't. They, may not have done a master's in research or anything like that, and so they come to it really without any experience with research, and that's absolutely fine. I think as well as Meredith said, she learned a lot about action research, and I think oh, we can't hear you. We've dropped out. There we go. That's strange, isn't it? Can you hear me now? Meredith? Hello?
Just with the sound.
Oh, hello. You're back.
A bit of a pause there.
Great. Yeah, well, I was just saying basically that you don't need to have experience with research, and that you'll find that a lot of the data collection and analysis for action research is quite different to traditional types of research. So you don't get that hardcore kind of quantitative stuff in action research, which is generally a nice surprise for people when they discover that. Anyway, I think we have pretty much finished. If there are no other questions, I'd just like to say thank you to Meredith and Tanya for presenting your project today and for talking us through the program as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for coming. If you have
Great.
any questions, please email me. I've sent my email. And please do refer to all that information on the website as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.